Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. The Derry Public Library is celebrating writer Scott Landon all month long. We're joining in the fun by starting our own studio book club. Who knows, maybe we'll turn it into a podcast. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham.
Hey, constant readers.
And today we are covering part one of Lisey's story. It is our Patreon selection from Robin Nickerson. And we are covering through chapter 6 with CM leading our discussion. CM, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Lisey's story, which it's Lisey's. Figured that out. It's not Lizzie's.
It rhymes with
Lisey.
Cece.
Yeah. This is a horror romance novel, which, guys, the last Stephen King horror romance novel that we got was Misery.
I'm so glad that you made that connection, because I'm going to bring that topic back to us later.
Oh, good.
Really? Because I can't follow that logic.
I can skip my pause for laughter note because you took that seriously. So we are introduced to...
Hold on, you have a pause for laughter note? You're the best.
And then it says...
You're legitimately the best person I know.
Maybe? I wasn't sure how you guys would react.
They are your notes. You should be so confident in them. Don't second guess your notes, Sam.
It's just how I do. Okay, so we are introduced to Lisey as she and one of her 4 sisters are in her late husband's study. Her husband of 25 years, the famous novelist Scott Landon. And he died 2 years prior to where we're at now. And Lisey is finally getting around to going through all of his stuff in his study, which is something that I think you would very understandably put off. It really does a good job of setting the tone for the book, I think. And her sister Amanda is there to help in her different way that she has of helping. But something that I thought was really cool, like right off the bat, we come to understand something about Lisey through Scott, who is dead. So she's reflecting on, she's letting Amanda kind of do her thing, even though she can tell Amanda's like waiting for her to say something or ask her what's up. Because Scott would tell her that one of her talents is that she's a business minder who didn't mind too much if you didn't mind yours, as long as you weren't a dick about it.
What an interesting character trait to give someone.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we'll talk about this in a bit, but we all started listening via audiobook. And once I got this character note about her, it framed a lot of the next few things she said, and then my notes were kind of not favorable to Lisey, because you get that, like, the business minder, and then there are some other things that talk about that she, like, never graduated, and the incux that comes from the misunderstanding of a word, and it all led to this thing where I was like, is this saying Lisey's dumb? And that's the impression I got right away. And I couldn't be more wrong. Absolutely couldn't be more wrong, come to find out.
I also had a difficult time with the tone of the audiobook. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I was hating it. And I started talking to you guys about it. And then one of our listeners on Patreon, Michelle, hi, Michelle. Also, she had mentioned how much she loves this book. And I trust her opinion. We've talked to her a lot over the years. And I was like, dang it, okay, what am I doing wrong? So I listened to all of this twice, hated it both times, and then had to start over and read it and had a completely different perspective.
That's interesting, because we did talk about this a little bit. And when you two both said, we could not listen to the audiobook, that was before I had started. So when I started the audiobook, it wasn't the tone that I thought you two didn't like. Because I think I do not know the voice actress, the reader who reads this book. I thought she does a great job. The thing that I had to stop listening for was the language that Lisey uses.
Which I think is made worse through the narrator's tone. I guess that's what I
Okay.
mean.
It's just the way Lisey talks. It never gave me the impression that she was dumb. It's just that Stephen King thing that he does where he will give characters that are offbeat or usually they're like little side characters that just have a catchphrase. You know, we've talked about it a million times, and it's always jarring because you go, Stephen King, humans don't talk like this.
Like when a character makes up a word instead of using a swear word.
Exactly.
Like in
And
Misery.
now,
like
That's
the things
different.
that Annie
that is different. That is different
Thank you.
because that is meant as an indication of this person isn't super well.
Yeah, and this isn't
In
supposed to
this
be that.
isn't
Right.
that. This is just Lisey has a very cutesy way of talking and a like folksy, a lot of folksy aphorisms. Is that the word I'm looking for?
I think I thought about that too. Like, that's exactly dead on. I didn't realize that something like that doesn't translate to an audiobook well.
Yeah,
It is
I would
so
agree
much
with that.
easier to read her saying smucking this and smucking that in text. It doesn't
Yeah.
make me want to gag myself.
Here's my hot take though. By the end of this section, I find it incredibly endearing.
Same.
I
Absolutely
actually
same.
At first I was like, having a main character that talks like this is obnoxious. Some of the things that she says is like, no, I can't abide by this. But by the end of it, and this is a real only me thought, but the reason I decided I liked it, you're gonna have to just follow me. Anybody watch Bob's Burgers?
Casually?
I haven't.
No. So at the start of the book, where we still are, we meet Amanda, who is Lisey's sister. And as we get to know them, I realized something, that this character is just Gail from Bob's Burgers, Linda's sister Gail, who
Holy
is
shit.
kind of a character. Amanda is described very unfavorably by Lisey
yes.
as like a nutball, that she has a history of mental illness. But throughout the book, she just kept reminding me of this character, Gail from Bob's Burgers, which made me think, oh, that makes Lisey Linda Belcher. And all of the things that she says are absolutely things Linda Belcher would say. And that made me like her more.
Okay,
That's terrific.
I'm gonna have to watch some episodes.
I will
because
send you some good ones.
I am
Yeah.
suffering having listened through this part we're covering twice, and so her voice is still trapped in my head, and I have nothing endearing to compare it to. So I'm still struggling a little bit. But anyway, we're gonna move on from that. Just an interesting thing that I like to talk about sometimes, because I know a lot of our listeners prefer to read versus prefer to listen to the audiobook. Some with reading issues are like, thank God the audiobook exists. And I just wish everybody had all the options. All right, so this is where we get some of that understanding that Lisey has her own special language. It was from her marriage. She and Scott had like this way of communicating with one another. Inkunks is something that's going to come up a lot. Would one of you like to describe what an inkunk is?
An inkunk is what she calls the people who constantly bombard her with wanting to go through Scott's things now that he's passed, because it is spun wildly from rumors that there are manuscripts upon manuscripts and short stories and so many things that people want to get their hands on.
Yeah, Scott Landon is, well, first of all, the funniest self-insert character I've ever read. But also he's described it, he's not just a famous writer, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer. He is a big deal. People were studying his like writing while he was still alive.
Yeah, Professor Woodbody that we talk about early on here says he has like 3 students writing Scott Landon theses.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
And that's like the only okay thing that this fucker says. He is. So we hear about these individuals, and the worst of them is this Professor Woodbody, who Lisey reflects starts off like really nice and is saying the right things. And then as she's kind of giving the vague responses as far as, I'm going to get to it probably in the next few months. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but kind of blowing him off, he goes just full psycho.
Because when he boils it down to just because you shared his bed doesn't mean you get to control his talent or something to that. It was something very derogatory.
You have no right to, you're just a piece of ass, his wife of 25 years. Mm-hmm. You have no right to dictate what happens with this stuff. And also you didn't even go to college. So you're too stupid to even know what to do with it.
Yeah. What I think is interesting is that while, very clearly this is not Stephen and Tabitha's relationship on paper, which, people I'm sure automatically draw that distinction a little bit. It is kind of cool not cool right now, seeing King's perspective on how the wife of a famous author is treated by the general public who have no idea who she is.
Yeah.
Because it just so happens that Lisey doesn't have all those things, but things that there have been times where people have said things about Tabitha that Stephen King has corrected.
I do infer a lot of like self-reflection and stuff in this, which maybe it's not, but I think it's cool. Also, I really wanted her to stab this guy.
No kidding.
So justified. Just stab him. He's in your house talking to you that way. That's your right. So as Lisey's thinking about all the stuff in the room, she thinks about the stuff that's not in the room. And I almost missed this. I don't know what this means yet, but it's very dark. She's talking about things that were either destroyed, like the computer monitor, or too badly scratched and dented to be shown. Such an exhibit would raise more questions that it could even answer. Like, any idea what that means
super
yet?
cryptic.
Oh, I just took that as like there's a bunch of stuff that's been in here for so long that it's all beat up. I didn't put any meaning into that.
Oh no, the word destroyed is used. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's almost so subtly stated, though, with the exception of the word destroyed, that you kind of pass right over it. And it wasn't until going back the third time I was like, wait a minute, something terrible happened here. Something has been...
This whole first, chapter drops so much on you that you don't know is important or reflects on anything yet. It's... So, for instance... They're talking about all the things they're going through, and it's at this point when we find out that it's not just his office, it's a barn with its own address. And so it slowly starts, that overwhelming feeling that she has slowly starts to come into more focus as we realize the scope that she is dealing with. I thought it's really interesting going back and, well, kind of like what you said, Sam, I listened to the audiobook, went back and started reading it, and caught those extra details.
Yeah. This is where we find out, too, what Amanda's been up to, because she's been lurking along the shelves and doing something with a notebook and a pencil. So she has made 846 entries of a potential thousands. And she's giving Lisey a look that usually means someone is going to cry soon, probably going to be Amanda. What did you guys think of what Amanda was doing to, in her mind, help out?
I'm so glad it's what it is and not what I thought.
What did you think?
I also, let's see.
What did you guys think?
I thought she was another vulture.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Because Lisey says that she doesn't want Amanda to know she knows what she's doing. She's trying to be very secretive. And I was very worried that her sister was, taking advantage of the situation.
That and the fact that Lisey has, how many is it? 4 sisters?
Yeah, there's 5 of them total.
She does not speak of them in glowing terms. They have had a rough relationship, and she has said, now that they're older, that they've kind of let bygones be bygones, but their relationship is still kind of fraught. So I thought, is this going to be her older sisters coming in and trying to say, we know
help
best,
themselves? Yeah. Ooh. Well, that's fortunately not it. It's actually something else. She has been making these notes of magazines and just print articles and all kinds of things that have featured Scott. And Lisey is in these 846 of them. And there are several of them that Amanda says do not portray you favorably. And for Amanda, that means because they refer to her as gal pal.
It's so disrespectful.
Or not at all. But it didn't, because Lisey's just sitting there like, oh, cool. There's like memories here waiting for me of things. You know, I haven't seen these since they were taken. Like, this is going to be so awesome. And she's not at all like on that mindset of being offended about how she's portrayed or not portrayed in these. She's just looking forward to it and just kind of trying to gauge Amanda's mood so that she doesn't say the wrong thing. Because Amanda's like, did I do right by pointing out all this stuff to you? Which I thought was a cute moment from Amanda. So there's another really dark, creepy thing here. As she's looking at the pictures in these magazines and articles, we get this really interesting and probably important, but I don't quite know what it is yet. Like these tidbits about mirrors and the purple thing with the piebald side, a thing that haunted Scott on sleepless nights.
The purple thing and the piebald side thing are different. The purple thing, if I'm interpreting this correctly, the purple thing seems to be what she refers to as like the barrier for memories she's blocked off.
Yeah.
And then the long boy with the piebald side is what Scott talks about.
Well, those are both baffling
They're
still.
both
That didn't help clear it up.
The thing with the piebald side is an extremely Lovecrafty name
That was
for
my
a monster.
note too. Yeah.
And the fact that later on Lisey does refer to it as the tall boy or what? No, the long boy is
Nope.
such a Lisey. Like I took that as like Stephen King, you almost had a really cool monster name.
What? No. The words
The
long
long
boy together as something like that I can't even picture is horrifying. I'm horrified.
I've listened to too much McElroy content, I think. Adding the word boy to the end of anything makes me laugh.
There are two things about the long boy that I find very interesting. One is that it's very clearly a name a little kid would give something.
Yeah.
Because, and the other thing is that you don't get from the audiobook is that every time they say it, it's in quotes and not capitalized.
Yeah.
And that, for some reason, that wigs me out.
It is still very, it got me a little bit. But the first time that she's like, because they keep referring it to it as the thing with the endless piebald sides.
Yes.
And it's like, that's really scary. But then she goes, yeah, that long boy. And I was like, that's so silly.
Ben, I love how horror is interpreted through your brain. So they wrap things up, and later that night, Lisey wakes up from a dream. And this is so brutal. We don't get the dream itself yet. It's like this double fold thing of what happens to her in real life is brutal, and then you get this really weird dream. But she hears this voice, and it's Scott's, saying, I was lost in the dark and you found me. I was hot and you gave me ice. And we're going to come to understand much more of that later. But what's brutal about it is that when she wakes up or thinks she wakes up, she has a moment where she thinks that she just had a dream that Scott was dead and she was cleaning out his study, which I think we can all kind of relate to that feeling. Going through something really horrible and you wake up in the morning and there's like that moment before you're fully conscious where you don't remember this horrible thing waiting for you. And then it hits you and you're like, there's a moment of peace. And it's a lie.
I love this because King does it a few times in this book.
Yeah.
This feeling, later on we'll get to it, but there's an extended flashback explaining a lot of things that happened in Scott and Lisey the early years, you know? And when the flashback ends, she wakes up, she goes to bed in the flashback and then opens her eyes and she's like, I don't know when this is. And we, the readers, don't know when it is. And it's really cool and gives you the same misplacement in time that she's feeling. You're
thrown off.
It's a really neat effect that he uses. That's cool.
As we're talking about grief of, losing a spouse, did you guys just think, oh, this is interesting because we just read Insomnia and Ralph lost his wife and
We read what?
Insomnia?
I don't remember that one.
Well, I'll tell you about it later and then we'll go do a thing.
I did think about that, and I think it's interesting to see. We've talked plenty of times about King's writing of grief, and it's very interesting to look at two novels where grieving spouse is a plot point versus the plot.
Yeah, and where it's happening in time, like I think the most raw grief that we've read, of course, is Pet Sematary. And then Ralph's was more of an acceptance and a loneliness and an aching. And Lisey's is just something else entirely.
Lisey's, the state that she's in is really hard to lock down where she is in her grief, because she still hears Scott in her head and responds to him audibly sometimes without thinking that obviously he's not in the room. And she's not crazy. She's not thinking Scott's speaking to me. She knows she's using Scott's voice in her head, but it's still
sometimes
very
it's
familiar.
Intrusive, and sometimes she's making it happen intentionally, which is interesting. So she wakes up kind of from this into another dream, and she's floating through her yard on like a flower thing.
It's a big Pillsbury's Best is what it says, right?
Yeah, it made me think for some reason of the Eyes of the Dragon and the napkins. I don't know why.
No, I imagine a big like flour sack.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Canvas flour sack.
Yeah, so that's her magic carpet. And she's in a huge field, like a vast field of purple flowers, thinking, Scott, I loved you, I saved you over and over again. And when she wakes up, like actually wakes up, she's repeating those words. She saved him and she got him ice. And this is related to something that happened in Nashville in 1988 at a ribbon cutting, a guy named Dashmeal and a madman. So we flash back to the incident, but before we're told what happens, we flashback to it was hard making notes on this, to the beginning of their relationship.
We don't get, this is just the
This
blood
is the first
bowl.
mention of the blood bowl, is it?
Yeah,
because it's just this. It's a very quick snippet.
Yes.
Yeah, where she recalls this image of him holding out his hand, but his hand is covered in blood, and it's the blood bowl. And then she's like, "But I can't think about that right now."
And it's while she's in the hospital. So the flashback is her being in the hospital, flashing back to something else that happened.
Sure. And I gotta say, of all of the like Scott-isms in this book, as opposed to King-isms, that don't work or make me chuckle, the word bool is not one of them. That is she says it constantly. It is like a big deal. And every time, especially the words blood bool come up, it kind of gives me goosebumps.
You know why you got goosebumps? Because you probably subconsciously remember hearing that expression in Wizard and Glass.
What?
Yep.
Is
Blood Bowl of the End, I think, is the expression that's in Wizard and Glass.
What?
It's a weirdly familiar thing. And I think that's why, because that didn't bother
it does
me
sound
either.
very
And
Middle
I
Earth,
think I was
Middle Earth. Fucking mid-world shit.
Okay, the thing though, the reason I brought this up is because it just has this like beautiful, like hauntingly beautiful moment in it that this is after he's been shot, which we were going to get to. She's going to get to.
This whole beginning is so fucking out of order.
Yeah.
It's such a wild
crazy
structure. I'm so sorry, Sam.
It's okay.
Yeah, so sorry. It's crazy. I didn't realize until now when we're trying to work through it chronologically how unchronological
I know.
this book
I nearly approached it chronologically, but bear with me. Because I have a reason for bringing this up. She's in a hotel by the hospital by herself because he's still being cared for. And she's thinking about how the darkness loves Scott. He dances with it like a lover, and the moon comes up over the purple hill. We get this purple hill thing again. And what was sweet smells sour, smells like poison. And then she thinks about when she was a kid and she loved the dark too, because her mom told her there's nothing bad in the dark and she believed her. So on stormy nights, she'd be like, hey, somebody give me a flashlight. I'm going to like stay up and walk around the house in the dark. And I don't know if that's important yet, but It's just interesting they have this similar kind of feeling about darkness. Ben, you're giggling.
Stephen King is such a fucking dork. I love him. It's just funny to me that this book is for Tabitha. It is dedicated to Tabby in the front of the book. And it is, we've mentioned, you're brought to the front of your mind that like this is him writing from, maybe some experience. Scott Landon feels like him writing about himself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And everything like this, he's in love with the dark, is just him describing himself from his wife's point of view. I can just imagine him writing this and like sitting back and being like, fuck yeah, I am cool.
Oh God, Ben, I wish you hadn't done that, because the very next note I have to apologize to Mr. King. So we find out that Lisey was Scott's first. He'd never been able to get a full-on erection.
Hit the boner talk sting.
With anyone else. And, this is what I was talking about. We go back to the beginning of their relationship briefly. And he tells her that when he's in bed with her that first night, he's telling her that he feels like he's home, and the thing in the dark that gets closer is gone. And it can come back, but it can't stay, so he can finally go to sleep. And that's Scott's love story. Like, that's how he knew that he loved her. He's like this 80s goth singer in a band. I love it. I also hear a few things that are going to come back. Daddy's prize was a kiss, which freaks me out.
Yeah. Don't want to find out what that's about.
Yeah, it's touched on later, but not really explained, so we don't know yet. What really stands out, though, is throughout their marriage, she talks about trying to keep him safe, but in the end, Scott's thing had come back for him. The thing he sometimes glimpsed, again, in mirrors, in water glasses, and reflections. The thing with the piebald side, the long boy. And this, I'm still trying to figure out, is this actually like a spooky horror story thing that this book is going to do? Or is it a metaphor for Scott's mental state?
Is there a literal monster in this book or not? We don't know yet. I'm very excited to find out.
But whatever his fear is, whether real or imagined, it has infected Lisey, because at the end, we end this section with her laying in the dark alone and wondering if that thing is watching her.
Yeah, his thoughts are he's so charismatic
infectious,
that they infect other people, because like she thinks about how he has this weird superstition about night food. That
like
if you
gremlin rules?
Yeah, basically. That you don't want to eat between 10 midnight and 6 because most food is poisoned by then. And it's like, what does that mean, bud?
That's sad.
Yeah.
Do some of my best snacking sometimes between midnight and 6. And what if you work different shifts?
Yeah,
Ben?
I work third shift. I'm just out of luck.
I have a theory.
Yeah, do it.
I think this thing and the rules about the food are because we know later we find out, God, we're all over the place. We find out his little brother is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their dad was abusive and they spent nights on the run outside of the house, and very like talisman-y way, like they're a thinny, and this place is a real place somewhere. That's why his description in his head is so accurate. And between the hours of 12 and 6, the night when they were sleeping out in the woods to stay away from their dad, that's when the fruit off the trees was poisonous. That's why they couldn't just live there forever, maybe? I don't know.
Have you guys seen the movie Frailty?
No.
With Matthew McConaughey.
A long time ago.
And is it Bill Paxton?
Yeah. Bill Paxton's the
dad. Yes, it is this amazing movie about a dad who, like, the whole movie you're trying to figure out, and it's flashing back. Matthew McConaughey is an adult, and he's being interrogated by the police, and he had a brother, and you find out in his childhood the dad was like, had gone crazy one day, like the mom had died, and he started telling them that there are all of these demons and stuff, and teaching them how to spot demons in people, and kidnapping people and killing them, and involving his children.
Holy shit.
In the movie, I don't want to spoil anything, but it plays this so straight that you are sitting there going,
is it real or not?
Is the dad crazy, or are there demons? It's
I'm going to have to watch this movie.
And as you were talking, it made me think something like, okay, so that's my theory too, Frailty. Anyway.
And that's Frailty, the 90s movie starring Bill Paxton, gets the DPR seal of approval.
So the next day, Lisey opens the magazine related to the 1988 incident, and there's a photograph. Would one of you like to describe what this photograph is?
This photograph has no idea what's happening. It is taken after we find out what happens. The security guard is holding the commencement shovel. We see Dashmeal in the background, and the heel of her shoe is in frame, and it's at the groundbreaking. And it just says, the groundbreaking happened and nothing else.
It's the writer who is holding the shovel, the guy who's writing the article about the event.
Oh, Tona.
Oh my God. Oh, also, Talisman, you mentioned Scott smokes the same cigarette brand as Jack's mom.
Notice
really?
that.
Scott has left a note on the photo, kind of for Lisey, or about her.
This is the moment that brought their relationship really into focus for me.
Yes, yeah.
Because what it has written on this photo is gotta show Lisey. I bet she'll think it's as funny as I do, kind of like something to that effect. And it's because they both know that what this moment was, and the fact that her heel is in it, and knowing that Lisey won't care. She'll think it's funny.
But will she understand? And he thinks she will.
Yeah.
So, well, let's go back and let's stay there and figure out what the fuck happened, because this book teases you with it for so long. So they're at this ribbon cutting, and there are all these...
It's a groundbreaking for a new library at the school he went to, or...
No, I think it was just a...
He was just making an appearance.
Yeah,
he's
getting paid like a lot to come there and make a little speech and cut the ribbon, or do the shovel of dirt, the first shovel. And there are all these people around because he's a very popular author. This is a couple years into their relationship, and Lisey she's been having this bad feeling, this omen, all day, because she's not superstitious, but that morning she broke a glass, and her mom had a saying about breaking a glass, which I did not write down.
Break a glass at night, your husband's shot in the evening.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Yep, exactly. And so she is noticing what her and Scott refer to as, or what she refers to as, a deep space cowboy nearby. a super crazy fan, a constant reader, the likes of like Annie Wilkes, I guess, except not as charming.
You haven't gotten his whole backstory.
I was heartbroken reading this line. I made a note of it. She's watching him kind of show off for the crowd, and he does this like twirly thing with the spade in his hand, and she's like, I didn't know he could do that. And the line is, how lucky do you have to be for your love to outrace your time?
Fuck, that was my end quote for the episode.
So as the crowd disperses, she notices that the space cowboy isn't moving with the crowd, but against it. And he is muttering something. And that thing is, the church bells came down Angel Street. That run-gut sound like rain on a tin roof, dirty flowers, dirty and sweet. And that's how the church bells sound in my basement, as if you didn't know. And he starts yelling this.
This part is so cool because it plays into that same feeling that we were talking about earlier of like how much of this is literal. Like a lot of this isn't literal, I don't think. But as Scott is walking away, not paying attention, right? Mm-hmm. And she sees this guy coming, and she says that even over the crowd, she can hear perfectly what this guy is saying, which isn't possible, obviously. And then once the action starts, she says that she's glued to the ground. That feeling like in dreams, where you are trying to run and you can't. But this is real. This is happening. It's just written in a very, very dreamlike manner that I think really fits like traumatic events. It feels like, oh, this can't be happening.
I would argue that all of the flashbacks so far have that same dreamlike quality. So it does put you off a little bit. It's almost like you're dreaming about the things she's dreaming about.
I think it's the detail, the relentless details, like Ben talking about the she could not have been hearing him perfectly. I think that when she remembers it now, she remembers hearing these things. Because she's remembered it over the past 18 years, this is how it's gone in her head.
Mm-hmm. So she's the only one who's noticed this guy, and she sees what's about to happen. She's trying to move. She's frozen. And then finally she can move. And he shoots Scott in the chest.
In the
lung.
Not in the heart. But Scott's still trying. Like, he doesn't seem to realize he's been shot. And she's watching as just his shirt is getting dark with blood and trying to get to him. Do you guys want to talk about how this unfolds?
It's all, like I said, it's all happening in slow motion for Lisey as she is trying to get to him, to the point where a girl walks in front of her and briefly blocks her sight of Scott. But it feels like just the split second it would take for someone to pass in front of you. And it's so important she has time to note it, right? Mm-hmm. But as this happens, it breaks and she shoves this girl aside, right? And she sees, what's his name? Gerd?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blondie, as we begin to know her. She can see how precisely his hand moves to aim at Scott's heart. And she knows, I'm not going to make it in time. Mm-hmm. There's no way I can make it in time. And then she brains the guy with a shovel.
Yeah, she does.
First, she smacks the gun. Like
doesn't it like go?
Yeah,
isn't
it goes
one
up.
hit?
It's one swing.
Oh, that was.
It's one swing. As time finally catches up and she is able to sprint forward, she swings up and knocks the gun into the air and lands this silver spade across the guy's mouth, breaking what's all the damage?
Shatters like 9 teeth.
His orbital
shatters.
He's absolutely wrecked and goes down.
But then she does not. She cares that she stopped him, but she cares obviously that Scott now at this point has gone down.
Well,
he's walking away.
He's walking away. Yeah, he hasn't gone down.
Because that's why he's not in the photo. She tosses the shovel to the security guard.
The guy who's there to write the article.
So the guy, God, I keep getting it switched around. Mostly because I keep thinking about, I need to ask you guys, what is a perfectly huge patch of orifice?
Perfectly huge badge of office.
Badge of office. Thank you for
the only thing I can think that it would make sense.
I could not I stared at that phrase for like so long and could not. Okay, that makes way more sense because he's like the head of security.
Yeah.
Got it. But yeah, so that picture has taken place after all of that, which is why only her heel's in it. It's great that this massive backstory for this.
And the writer gets the credit.
For saving the day, yeah. And she can see the puzzled look on his face as he's holding it.
Yeah, because it happens so fast, like the crowd even doesn't know that he's shot yet.
Yeah. He's looking at the spade as though it could have been a mortar shell or something. He's still trying to feel like he can't figure out what's in his hands.
And so she's trying to follow Scott. And this is interesting too. And it really made me feel like King was writing from experience or what he could imagine if this happened to them. She knows that if she doesn't get to him as soon as possible, the crowd is going to kill him with their smothering, their concern and their love. And she can hear him like starting to wheeze, and he starts to go down, and she makes her way through the crowd. And he is on the ground, and she can hear him saying, "It's very close. I can't see it, but I hear it taking its meal and grunting." And he's like, and if you want to be done with me, I'll call it.
That.
Let's talk about how he calls it, because this is horrifying.
This moment is so fucked. I'm really fucked up over this. Because I can just see this scene so clearly. He's whispering, and she's looking at him and seeing how the blood coming from his mouth makes him look like a grinning clown. Mm-hmm. And he's excited, like a kid. He's saying, "It's here. I can hear it. You want to hear it? Do you want it to come? I can make it come. And he makes this snorting noise.
He's blowing air out of his bloody, misty.
Blood is spurting from his lips as he is making this grunting noise. And she thinks it's real. It is close. And if he makes that sound louder, it will come. And I won't see it. We won't see it. But it will come, and then Scott will be gone. Yeah. And it's so goddamn scary.
Lisey comes out of this memory to some voicemails, and with one of note, a male voice she doesn't recognize saying 3 words, "I'll try again." And those 3 words chill her. And that's all we get. We are then in another dream, and we're continuing this story. She is in the hospital after his bullet has been removed and he's in recovery.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I was distracted. You really glazed over that "I'll try again." That hit me so hard. Did that not like freak you guys out? Because she has just come out of this reverie about her husband being attempted to be killed. Because that's another thing is obviously this happened in 1998. Scott didn't die until 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So he survives this, but having chronologically in the book just heard about this attempt on his life. And then there's a mysterious call from a voice she doesn't recognize saying, "I'll try again." I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
And the phone call is in her office in Scott's studio.
It took me a second to even click that it was just saying, "Oh, I'll try calling again." I was like, he's already dead. What do you mean? I really thought it was going to be this GERD guy, like
I gotcha.
having escaped or whatever. We don't know what happened to him. Right?
I absolutely had all the same thoughts. I just didn't want to hog the glory of a cool moment. Okay, so we are in another dream. She's in the hospital after Scott's bullet's been removed. He's in recovery. And he's not alone because she's there too. Not just in her dream, but it's like a dream of a memory. Is that a way to describe it? A dream of a memory?
Did this give you weird insomnia vibes? The way she was too high for the
floating.
room?
Yeah.
I do love that she's laying flat on this flying carpet because if she sat up, the fan would hit her.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like if you're on a flying carpet, I think you're good.
Dream logic, man.
Yeah. So anyway, this is in 1988, and she's looking at this version of herself, and she's thinking about how she is so ready to get out of this state. Like that's what she was thinking at the time, and get home, which shouldn't be too much longer because she has reason to know that Scott is a fast healer. We're going to leave it at that for now. And the dream ends in a very fascinating way. She's trying to tell her past self something. Do you guys want to talk about what happens here?
Yeah. Lisey is telling Scott what happened to him, how he wound up in the hospital. So 88 Lisey is talking to Scott while present Lisey is watching from above. And she's realizing that either he actually doesn't remember or he's faking it.
Because she's told him like 3 times as he comes in and out of consciousness.
And present Lisey is trying to tell 88 Lisey he's 100% faking it. And she's shouting to her, and she thinks for a second she's getting through. And then Scott just blows.
Oh, he looks at her.
Oh, yeah, he looks at her and then blows at her, and she just flies off.
Kind of like he blew earlier when he was saying he could make the thing come.
Interesting.
So is she really there?
That's interesting.
I don't know. I'm going to sound stupid probably in episode 2 or 3 of this. So Lisey wakes up.
Yeah, when Matthew McConaughey doesn't show up with his dad.
Hey. Lisey wakes up from this dream knowing that she has to find the silver spade she used to save Scott's life, but not why yet. And as she goes about her day, thinking about the past, his voice keeps coming to her, insisting that she find it. And then the voice in her head says something else. "I left you a note." And it is so just unexpected in this moment that she's asking her empty kitchen, like, "Okay, Scott, are you a ghost? Are you haunting me?" And in response to this question, the window in the kitchen is open and a gust of wind blows through. I love it. It's so fun.
I love the subtlety of all of the supernatural things so far, because that moment feels so real to me. Like, I love that she is a skeptic. Like, she doesn't believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
But
the moment in real life you have a dramatically timed wind, you feel pretty rad. You're like, I know this is bullshit, but damn. So she goes out to the barn turned study to look for the spade, and the phone begins to ring, and it is one of Lisey's other sisters, Darla, and she's calling from her sister Amanda's house, which is not good. And we didn't mention this, but Amanda, of course, we said has had some mental health issues and had been married and divorced, and her husband left and her kids left, and Lisey was worried about her, so her and Scott, being more well off, basically bought her a house near them and just have her nearby so they can help her and keep an eye on her. So would one of you like to describe why Darla is suddenly calling Lisey?
So Darla and Amanda are the two eldest and have always had a really contentious relationship back and forth. And Lisey always found herself being kind of the peacekeeper. And it was after Amanda's last break that the family did the bygones thing. And Darla stepped up to help some more, but it's not something that, she's not the first call usually. And so that's what alarms her initially. And Darla says she's been set off. She found out her ex-boyfriend, who just went to France, came back married to a French woman, and she snapped and she hurt herself. And Darla sounds exhausted and beat. We find out why later, but says, that the only person who can get her to calm down is going to be Lisey. So Lisey, she needs her to come be back up.
And she thinks that she was drinking her own blood because her mouth is bloody, but she can't find any cuts or anything in her mouth. While talking to Darla, Lisey spotted the spade, of course, and looking at it gives her this strength, kind of like a talisman, which made me think of the talisman. And it's next to a box of Scott's stuff. And when she opens it, there's something interesting inside.
It's the top page of what looks to be a manuscript.
1,000 pages.
Yeah, not just any manuscript, but looks like a big novel, which is a big deal. And it's called, what's it called?
Ike Comes Home.
Ike Comes Home by Scott Landon. And she stares at it and she's like, oh, wow, this is... When could he have written this? It's possible, but it seems like
she generally knows his work.
Yeah. He shares with her what he's working on and lets her read what she wants. But she had never heard of this, so she's interested. I love the reveal, but
we don't
get to that in a minute.
Because she's interrupted by the phone ringing again. And it's not Darla, it's Zach McCool.
I'm so mad that Zach McCool isn't a good guy that I can love. Because when he answers, and it's this kind of soft-spoken...
Real calm.
Very calm southern... A guy with a kind of a southern lilt.
Yeah. Sorry, it's... maybe... I don't want to... Okay, I'm going to sound crazy. I don't know if you're saying you liked him. I'm going to say I liked him too.
In the first, and there's no reason for it.
No, because he's not a safe person. You can tell there's something weird here, but he's just so calm. And I kept thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I craving just this gentle calmness? It's because Lisey and her sisters and everything that's going on, everybody seems like such a outraged bitch all the time. That it was a nice contrast.
Everyone's at an 11. Zach McCool's at a
cool.
3.
Yeah. It's my thing was he answers the phone and he's just like, howdy, ma'am.
Ben, or is this your southern accent?
I'm working on it. And it's just it seems very calm. And once again, there was no reason that I should have thought this right away. But my first thought was, this is a secret confidant of Scott's. Because Scott has been talking to Lisey and seemingly leading her to this spade, right? And for whatever reason, I thought this was going to be, listen, I can't tell you who I am, but like you just found this magic shovel and there's danger afoot. There's a big crazy monster called the Long Boy, and I have to lead you to the clues to get to your husband's secret treasure. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I wanted this guy to be like,
on her
I
side.
thought this was a good guy.
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to think that.
Oh no,
And
he's
it goes
super
away.
bad guy.
Oh yeah, as soon as he's like, listen, and what is he's just like, you need to shut up and listen to me, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh damn, Zach McCool, come on.
I thought you were calm, cool, and collected, buddy.
Yeah,
No, his issue is that he.
glad you're proud of that one, bud. Good job, proud of you.
So we find out that Zach McCool is working for somebody who he won't identify, but Lisey knows who it is, and she calls him out on it. She's like, it's a wood body.
It's so obvious.
Oh, of course. And he's like, there's a guy who you don't need to know, even though you're supposed to send him this stuff, that you need to send this to him, and then we'll be okay. But if you don't, I'm going to hurt you where you wouldn't let the boys touch you. It was very upsetting.
This is a real first draft threat. Like the way it's like you said, somebody. We don't need to talk about who, but you need to give him to this specific college. It's not a very well thought out.
Oh, I thought you meant the last threat. It's like, no, that's pretty dark.
I think,
yeah, I got you.
Yeah, this guy, you can tell he's calm in his delivery, but you can tell that he wants. I never let go of the fact that he wants to be able to follow through with this. He doesn't want her to actually give it in.
He thought that it was going to go a different way, so he wasn't prepared for making all these threats. He just is so crazy that he thought she's going to be like, oh, okay, sure.
The way she ends this phone call
Yes,
though,
how
is the
does she end
fucking
it?
best. So he's dropped this sexual assault threat on her, on top of the violence, and she gets real quiet. And, it's like really lures him in, and she can tell he's got his ear pressed to the phone, and she yells, "Go fuck yourself."
She screams it.
At the top of her lungs, slams the phone down. He calls back immediately, and she yanks the cord out of the wall. Fucking badass. Lisey rules.
And then before she heads out to Amanda's, she lifts up that first page of this manuscript and finds a strange message. Ike came home with a boom and everything was fine. Bool, the end. And every page after that
is completely blank.
Yep.
It is a big box of blank paper.
And she wonders, like, is this a Scott prank? But on who? Like, people like Woodbody? But that would mean that she thinks that would mean he knew he was going to die and he, like, prepared this for that. And so she wonders why he didn't say anything, because she was always the practical one. But she still would have believed him had he said, I know I'm going to die. So she finally heads to Amanda's, but we do get some foreshadowing because at some point she puts, I think, Amanda's notebook in her back pocket and has forgotten it, but it says that she would become aware of it in the fullness of time.
That made me wonder what the length of time of this book is.
I thought it was going to be just a day.
So far, it's been like 24 hours.
Well,
by the end of this reading, it'll be 2 days.
And I have to imagine, like, the spade has power, so this notebook maybe has power. Oh, I want to mention, too, she crosses Deep Cut Road from Dreamcatcher.
Nice.
So she's barely out of her car when Darla comes running out of the house with blood on her because the moment she left Amanda unattended with a cup of tea, after she'd taken away all the knives, Amanda broke the glass and started cutting herself. I also want to mention periodically throughout this, and shortly before leading up to it, Lisey's been having brief, we kind of talked about it earlier, those brief flashbacks of Scott just stepping out of the dark with a bloody hand, which is so, like, where it comes in this story that's otherwise been pretty straightforward, like story about grief, is just really effective and disturbing.
I'm glad we got to it by the end of this section, because if we hadn't, I would have...
it'd be frustrating.
Yeah.
Blood everywhere in this kitchen. Like, she cut herself and then kind of had a...
She made it. It was like Vera Donovan with poop.
Yeah.
It was blood everywhere to be as, I guess, dramatic is kind of how Darla describes it.
So Darla, before they take off, has to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, the way Lizzie describes it. She has to, it's whizzing a little lemonade and blotting the old bush.
Christ.
The phrases this family came up with.
Okay, but more importantly, Lisey tells Darla that they need to take Amanda to the ER. And she's kind of going into this sort of semi-catatonic state when she whispers something to Lisey. Or we just whisper something in front of her, I guess. I don't.
Unprompted, she says "bool," and Lisey's flesh grows cold.
She has a feeling everything that's happening is related and it's all tied to Scott. Lisey's handling this really well. She's explaining to Darla basically like, we're going to do whatever is in everyone's best interest. If she can go there and she can talk to the doctors, it's probably a good sign. We can watch her and we'll keep her safe. She can come home with us. If she won't respond to the doctors, probably means that she needs to stay and be observed overnight or over the next 2 days. And that chapter ends with Lisey thinking about how she's not the kind of woman who is lost without a man, and she's had a full life without him. He was sometimes even a handful, but there were days, recently that she has missed him so fiercely that she's felt empty like a dead tree filled with a cold November blow, and wondering what good love was if it came to this, to even 10 seconds of feeling like this. Fuck!
Yeah. I also like that there's a nod to Lisa, well, her real name is Lisa. Mm-hmm. There's a nod to Lisey being a strong, independent woman, because I believe she is. Mm-hmm. But also, boy, howdy, does this book not pass the Bechdel test.
No, not at all.
Not even a little bit.
Do you guys want to... They go to the ER, and I mean, stuff happens, but nothing I felt, unless you guys want to mention anything.
I just want to ask why Lisey counts these car crash people as a good thing.
She says they distract the doctor so that they don't ask too many questions, and they want to bring Amanda home, so it provides just enough.
I did not catch that. I did not get that, because she's like, thank goodness that this car crash family, no one got hurt. Otherwise, I wouldn't count it as a good thing. They all seemed fine, so it was great for me. And I was like, what? Why? I thought I missed something.
So when they get back home, Lisey lets Darla go, and she's going to stay over with Amanda. And she's trying to ask her about Scott and blood pools, but when she looks into Amanda's eyes, she sees peace and decides not to burden her with it. So they fall asleep, and Lisey, she wakes up in this book so much. Wakes up in the middle of the night to a memory, has a dream of a memory or something.
Sure.
And here we find out what all of this like Scott coming out of the dark bloody thing is. What did you guys think of this section? Let's talk about what happens.
This might be my favorite section we've read so far. It is so creepy and really puts Scott, at least for me, in a way different light.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he has been described not as like the perfect man or anything, but very real.
Normal dude.
Their relationship feels like a real relationship. Yeah. You feel the love. You feel the just weirdness of two people trying to get along together, Mm-hmm. It's very sweet. It's very obviously loving. It's great. And then we get this chapter of they're much younger. Scott is 24, I think they say.
Yeah, I think about 24.
And she's 22.
They're not living together
yet.
They're not
living together.
They're dating.
He's in college still, although he is now 2 novels in, on the verge of becoming this super massive, famous writer. But she is at home after work pissed. Because he was supposed to come over. They were supposed to have a date that she didn't even want to go on because it's some Swedish movie or something.
She didn't want to not go on a date with him. But
she wanted to see him, but
the activity she wasn't interested in.
Yeah.
So she's at home pissed, waiting up for him, and he's hours
5 hours late.
And
drunk.
And when he shows up, he's like, "Oh, baby, sorry, we got distracted."
It reminded me of Jack and Wendy in that moment.
Really?
Her waiting for him, and they're in college, and him coming home drunk. The similarities ended
sure
very quickly, but it just kind of put me back in that moment. That
sure.
space.
But unlike anything Wendy ever did, she flips out and goes off. If only Wendy had done this. Fuck. And goes off on him about how dare you come here and tell me that talking about this dead author was more important than me. And then continues going with less relevant.
Like picking at everything. That
Yeah.
can we talk about, though, the most interesting part of her yelling at him or arguing with him or arguing at him because he's just sitting silently is just her thought that she can hurt him because she knows he loves her enough that she can hurt him, and she decides, I am going to hurt him because I can. What did you guys think of that?
It was the moment that she says that she can see the things that others can't because she's not glamored by him. And those are the soft targets she hits. But yeah, then that next step was, I see in his eyes that I am hurting him, and I know I can do more.
Makes her feel powerful.
I'm going to go for it. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we all, but a fair amount of us had those arguments and relationships in our early 20s that you definitely say things you wish you could take back.
It's just such a weird thing, especially like in light of everything we've had about their relationship, just how it's described, that we would come to understand their love and how much she like realizes he loves her. Like this is a revelation moment for her, but just shrouded in this darkness because she crosses her own line.
And then has to sit in the silence afterwards because she says, I don't remember what I said, but I know it was very specific.
Yeah.
And then she says, I wish I could say something after, but we had to be in this silence for a while.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that in response to this pretty toxic outburst from Lisey, he responds with what I would argue is a lot worse.
If it weren't for all of the mystery of it and like the things we've gotten, I would have seen this as like a very manipulative tactic.
Exactly. Because he takes all this in. As she keeps going, the smile falls from his face and tears well up in his eyes. And his response is to say, he grins like a crazy person and says, wait, and then walks off into the darkness. And as she stands in the doorway, wanting to call his name, but not daring because then he would know she's not mad at him.
This is so cinematic.
Yeah, it really is. She hears breaking glass.
Like from down the road.
And she thinks the greenhouses are down there. Was that him? And she's just waiting and hearing all the noises of this college town they're living in. And finally, when he comes back, she sees his shadow limping towards her, holding out what she had earlier in the book described as not a hand.
Like a bloody mass.
A mass of flesh on the end of his arm, as saying, look, Lisey, it's a blood pool. It's for you. It's so fucked.
Well, you know what's even more fucked? She understands somehow that he means it as a gift.
Yeah.
An atonement. And her realizing he's not just in love with her, but he's half in love with death.
Oh,
and
that killed me.
And ready to agree with any cruel thing she could ever say about him.
This makes me, I think this part is the part more than anything else that made it really hard to stop reading this book.
Yes.
Because I have to know what the fuck a blood pool is. Because all we know so far is we more or less get what a bool is. It's a joke.
A prank.
It's a prank.
Yeah.
It's sometimes she says it's a
like
treasure
a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, scavenger hunt. But it's a game, right? But then there's the blood bool. It's a sacrifice? What is it?
All right. So this is the moment that my abuse thing for where this being a real place came in, is because the way he explains it is that the blood bool it's an apology. It's something that Dad taught me and Paul.
He explains it in the voice of a child, though, which is creepy.
and basically says that if you give a blood bool and say you're sorry, everything's forgiven. like that means it's all over. And because of that sharp regression after taking that abuse and how it's explained, I was like, oh, their family's seen a lot of blood pools.
Yeah.
To just say, look, I did this to myself.
No, you
and
can't
now
be mad
I
at
said
me.
sorry, so that means everything's fine.
And she has this very real moment where she's like, oh, he's
no.
crazy. Do I want to deal with this? Yes, I do.
This was also the moment that I made a note that it's very clear at this point how much both of them wanted to get as far away from their childhoods as possible. We don't know what happened to Lisey that has sent her away from her whole family, but that's kind of what this section says, is that she got out of Dodge without telling anybody.
Yeah,
and then
something
said,
about Big Ma, or what they call her. Their mother. Good Ma. Because her sisters resent her for not sticking around.
And passing on her poison to her sisters, all except one. And they haven't told each other about their histories either. So she's learning all this. She didn't even know he had a brother, Paul, who died, I think, when they were kids. And his mom died giving birth.
Yeah.
To him, and he just, the childlike words he uses really bothered me.
When it's said that his response about his mother dying is told as a joke, that he's repeating the joke, not realizing it's a joke, is
that
like,
his dad told him.
Yeah, that means that. So that's something your dad just casually said a whole bunch, buddy. So
she wants him to go to the ER to get stitches, and he's like, no, it's always crazy on Friday nights. If you want me to go in the morning, I will, but I have a home remedy. Paul, actually, my brother, made this up, and it's soaking his hand in tea bags.
Why not?
But it works, because the next morning, he's scabbed up, and she's telling herself, like, the cuts couldn't have been as deep as I thought they were, because there's no way they would be that healed. And then we find out, like, later on, he doesn't even scar from it. But it was definitely something you would scar from. So something there. And that's when we also hear that the prize is a kiss.
Yeah, Daddy's kiss is a prize when Daddy's kiss is the prize when the hurting stops.
No. Oh, and Paul made good bulls, treasure hunts. So they go to bed, and she wakes up in the middle of the night to pee, and Scott's not in bed. So she's like, hey, hurry it up. And she is waiting, and then she finally goes in the bathroom, and he's not there, and she looks, and he is in the bed. But she knew.
Fucking bull.
Did he go dim?
No. Now, this is where I agree with Josh's theory that we are going to learn that there is a place he goes.
So he's not going dim, he's traveling.
It fits with the night food theory that between these hours, there's some rift that there's some place he can go to in the night. That's what I'm assuming happened.
Yeah.
That that for a while, he's just not there.
It reminds me of the fairy tales about people like getting lost and coming on upon the fairy rings, and like, you're not supposed to take food or drink, and they can trick it. Yeah. So she manages to fall asleep again and wakes up at 4 a.m. to a marriage proposal.
So fucking weird, but they love each other.
But from her perspective, girl, you gotta run.
Yeah, absolutely.
From her perspective, she like yelled at him, but not that, like, that's not a reason to go maim yourself.
Yeah, what test did she pass from his perspective that she's marriage material?
Yeah, it's a red flag for sure.
He essentially says that he has never seen himself as he has people who adore him. He has fans. He has friends. He says that she is the only person who, outside of his dad and his brother, that has ever made him feel loved. And that's, I mean, that's where it's enough for him, obviously.
Yeah. Everything we get in the past just like colors the relationship we've heard that seemed normal and
and it does. We don't know what happened in Lisey's background, but the fact that this happened and she said yes tells me that this is not
super abnormal.
Yeah, like this level of extreme response is not unusual to her.
let's go to a true horror moment. She wakes up from this in the present, pressed up against Amanda's back the way she used to press herself against Scott. And it has a weirdest feeling that even though she's looking at the back of her sister's head, she can see her hair. She knows she's in bed with Scott, and then something happens.
I like she asks, and it specifically says, whomever, not her sister, asks whomever why Amanda said Boole. And Scott's voice comes out of her sister and says, I left you a Boole.
Well, the
calls her
voice
baby.
doesn't.
Oh, yeah, baby love.
I was going to say, it doesn't come to her response because she is thinking, I don't want to ask a question. I don't want to speak because what if I talk and Scott answers? And before she can talk, Scott says, love, baby love. And she goes, oh, fuck.
Boy.
And jeez. It gets weirder. She's told that, she's on this journey and the one she's on is a good Boole and it goes behind the purple and she's already found the first 3 stations. A few more and she'll get her prize, which is a drink.
Maybe an RC, maybe a Coke.
And then she feels something changes and she knows that she's not going to get another response and she freaks out. She starts shouting at Amanda and shaking her, but Amanda doesn't mind because she's fully gone. She is catatonic. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but Lisey spends just a heartbreaking morning trying to get Amanda to respond and trying to feed her and get her to go to the bathroom, and she wets herself. The eggs fall out of her mouth. Her sister comes over and tries, and it's the same thing. And so Lisey's like, I think this is it. Like, we are going to have to call Green Lawn Recovery and Rehab in Auburn, and we're going to have her committed. And it's been like 5 years since she had hurt herself. She had visited this place before, and we're about to find that there's a lot more history there that Lisey didn't know about. So let's talk about what happens.
I love that she says, it's been all these years and I'm still getting messages from Scott. And in my head, I was thinking, finding the Booles and stuff. Mm-hmm. But no, it's when she calls, there's been a note left in her file because she also says that she's Mrs. Scott Landon to play the famous card.
Which this is the first time she's used.
And come to find out that the doctor and Scott had lunch. He'd signed some books for him for the eventual nature that this might happen. And the message is, Scott's like, man, if you ever talk to her, you should ask her about the time I Booled that nurse in Tennessee. And like, except for he says fooled, but she knows he said Booled. And it's so funny that, Scott's already taken care of this. He took care of this years ago.
But it also points to that thing that she had thought earlier that, like, did he know he was going to die? Because if he left this message specifically for her years ago, like, how early was he setting up this Boole?
How far are we from the reveal of what that Boole is? Should I just go ahead and say it now?
Sure.
The Boole is that when he was in the hospital after his gunshot wound, he did the same thing to the nurse that he did to Lisey in their bed together, where the nurse walked in, he was gone, she searched, turned back, and he was back in his bed.
Gone to the point where the IV bag was still there.
Yeah!
So there was just an empty needle laying on the bed. And then when she went back to check, he was there again. Wild.
Yeah.
So this is a sad scene as the van comes to pick up Amanda and take her away. And basically, she's never coming home again. And Darla makes her way back home, listening to a book on tape by Michael Noonan from Bag of Bones.
Nice.
Another haunted love story that we haven't covered on this podcast. And Lisey's driving home after locking up Amanda's house. And the whole way home, she keeps like reaching over and touching the spade for comfort. And she passes this unfamiliar PT Cruiser, no big deal, waves, because that's what you do in the country. It's Zach McCool, but we find out later.
Obviously. And everyone knew that's who it was.
The vanity license plate that said McCool on it was the giveaway for me.
And she keeps thinking about Scott and their time together, but it's too painful, so she's pushing these memories away, thinking she's not meant to push it away. and she wonders if her memories are stations of the Bool, whatever that means. And she caves and buys some cigarettes on the way home. That's where she kind of flashes back to the nurse, and she comes to, and she smoked like 3 cigarettes and does not remember that. And she's realizing that that moment for her was another station. She's past this landmark, and Scott is leading her back into the past, and she's scared. And when she gets home, she sees that she has some mail in her mailbox. I don't want to talk about it.
It's so much mail. The mailbox won't even close. It's so stuffed full. There's bills, there's magazines, there's a cat.
A dead cat.
A dead cat in the back. But I love that this horrifying moment happens, and then she laughs. One, because it's so over the top, and 2, she doesn't own a cat.
Yeah.
I also laughed when I read that.
I couldn't possibly laugh, but I understand.
It does show, because up to this point, I had definitely thought that Zach was like, oh, this is like a hired person. This is hired muscle. He's so calm and collected that he must be a professional. And this shows, nope, he's just some violent dumbass who saw a cat and was like, yeah, I'll kill that.
And it's weird because he leaves her a note, and the note, he clearly cannot write very well. But my impression of him was that he was an avid reader because he's obsessed with Scott Landon. Is he?
Well, I think
Does he even read the books?
I think it was because it's a typewritten, and I assume he just didn't want to do corrections. I think he was typing too fast and misspelled.
This is written as someone who can't spell. I have it. It is described as someone who doesn't.
Did it say he was an avid reader?
Why does he care about Scott Landon so much? Okay, we're about to get there. Anyway, so she begins this horrific process of cleaning up the mess, destroying the evidence. Isn't even thinking about that.
And then eats some hamburger helper.
What'd you call it?
I just have to point out, because I actually do think it was earlier in the book, she makes hamburger helper, and it's just a throwaway line that it's what Scott would have called eating nasty.
I want to eat nasty. That sounds great.
It sounds like eating ass is what it sounds like.
Oh, no, it just sounds like eating just shit, like comfort food, bad for you stuff.
My family called the food like that gut wadding.
Gut wadding.
That's
great.
It's stuff that's just edible. You eat it and you're like, yeah, I'm full now, so I guess that was
I'm eating
good
flavor shapes.
But it's flavor shapes.
I think you just mean SpaghettiOs.
That's what I call processed food. It's just shapes with flavor.
I love that so much. Anyway, I just had to bring up eating nasty because it is one of the 2 things of all of the Scott and Lisey-isms that I'm like, Stephen King, no. That means something else.
I didn't even notice.
We have gotten almost to the end of our reading today, and we have not said the words strap it on yet. Stephen King, we need to talk, because that has a meaning that you don't intend.
It's like when I talk on our podcast. and I think that's why eating nasty never clicked with me.
That's terrific.
Okay, let's move forward.
Anyway.
Well, now that Lisey's strapped on.
Yeah, she's strapped on. She's eating nasty, and she's making a phone call.
Strapping it on and eating nasty.
Calling dirty. That's when you call somebody to yell at him. Calling dirty.
Oh, God. I got that. I ate a nasty base so that I could strap it on for this
dirty call.
Oh,
God. We could have written this book.
What is happening?
All right, let's talk about this. I'll just kind of quickly sum it up, and then we can just talk about the parts we liked. She calls Woodbody, and he doesn't have the reaction that she's expecting. And it's really cool to read about her being way more calm than she expects she can be. And her voice is steady, and she just feels in the zone, like she is telling him how it is. And it's this great, powerful moment for her, which is shattered when he's like, oh shit, that guy's crazy. I can't call him off.
I love that she's furious, rightfully so. But the second that she and we are expecting him to be like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? But immediately he's like, oh fuck, no, this is really bad. And she describes it as feeling a yellow thread of fear running through the red field of her anger. And that's just a real pretty turn of
Yeah,
phrase.
It
that is
reminds
nice.
me of Dreamcatcher and Insomnia.
Yeah.
Sort of like the seeing the line and then like the yellow through the red reminds me of the auras.
Yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, wood body.
Wood
is
smucky.
Wood smucky.
Jesus, I hate it.
We haven't said smucking this episode.
It's fucking. Anyway.
Wood body is immediately like, oh, I fucked up. And it's not my fault.
Yeah, he super downplays
Promise you won't be mad.
Yeah. But he's like, yeah, okay, so I go out to drink every once in a while, and Lisey's like, every day, sure. And I ran into this guy.
James Dooley.
And AKA Zach McCool. And we kind of hit it off, talking about how much we hate you.
It was mostly him. I was just passively agreeing, I promise.
Exactly. And over the course of a few weeks, it progressed to where eventually this guy said, you know, if you let me, I can talk. I'm good at changing people's minds. I can talk to this lady and get you the books that you want.
Though earlier he told her, ma'am, I don't talk, I act. Ugh.
Which is very scary.
He doesn't deserve the chambray shirts he's described as. Zero chambray shirts for you, Zach McCool. Sorry. So I really needed to say that.
0 shirts for Zach McCool. It's my favorite Dr. Seuss book. What were we talking about?
So Woodbody's not taking ownership of anything, and he's describing how they eventually come to this agreement. Sort of, they shake on it where he's going to get her to do what Woodbody wants, hand over these materials. But then he kind of like ghosts him, and Woodbody's like, you know, I think I'm going to drink at this other bar and never think of this ever again. Or warn the person I unleashed this madman on. Nah, not going to do that.
I love Lisey says, you know, after all of this, Lisey says, okay, you didn't know. You didn't intentionally do this. But let me ask you, if one day this guy had shown up at your house with all of Scott's papers, would you have taken him? And he just kind of whispers, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, you piece of shit.
Yeah, man, she does not give him a fucking
Oh,
inch.
no. She tears him apart. She says, like, okay, here's what's up. I'm going to hang up. And you should probably tell your wife what's going on. Because I'm about to call the sheriff. And he's going to have some questions, bud.
Can I tell you guys something embarrassing? So as she's telling Woodbody that if Dooley calls him, she's like, you're going to call the thing off. And I'm like, I was so mad in this moment. I'm practically screaming at my book, like, that's so stupid. This guy's crazy. That's not going to work. And he should just tell him, hey, she shipped the boxes. I got everything. It's cool. But of course, that's stupid. This guy's crazy. It's not going to work. I was trying so hard. I felt so tense in this moment. I'm like, no, do this instead, because that'll work, because your idea is dumb and so is mine. But she also has this moment where she's like, okay, if he shows up, fuck it. I'll just give him the keys and we'll be done with it, which also wouldn't work. But then she also thinks, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hand these over. And so she's already realized that there's nothing she can do. He's going to hurt her and he's going to find a way to excuse his behavior. He's going to make it her fault, in quotes. And we realize, here that there's no stopping this guy. He is on his own wavelength. And so, Ben, as you said, she closes things out, telling him, I'm going to call the cops. You're going to tell them everything. You own this. Like, you bought and paid for this. It's yours. How does it feel? And after this call, she realizes, oh, fuck, I left the spade in the car. I have to go get it. Except it's gotten pretty dark outside, which leads us to just this tense fun moment. Well, not
A
fun,
very
but
tense standoff with a lawnmower.
yeah, she's
It's
seeing
the
like
tensest standoff with a lawnmower I've ever read, to be fair.
Yeah, outside of Tommyknockers.
I haven't read Lawnmower Man. But she gets her tool of power, and we wrap things up for now with her deciding, okay, I'm going to call Norris Ridgwick, the Castle County Sheriff.
Wild. Okay. Am I just misremembering? I swear to Christ, Norris died.
No.
No?
I thought he did too.
I swear
yeah.
he dies at the end of Needful Things.
No. He's, if I remember right, he drives the car.
Oh,
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, because he got shot or something by Buster. Okay.
So all these connections.
Huh.
Oh, God. That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode where we will be covering through Chapter 11. For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, this is Joshua Kahn reminding you, you love me all the way around the equator and not just for some story I wrote. When your door closes and the world's outside, we're eye to eye.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Lisey's Story, Part 1. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Derry Public Radio or Twitter at Derry Public. And you can send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our merch on our Etsy store and bonus episodes on our Patreon. And I hope you enjoy this bit that didn't make the episode. Ben, did you snap when you said, hey, constant readers?
No.
Totally hallucinated that you went, hey, constant readers.
No, I don't think so.
You think Ben is so cool.
Well, we'll find out when I listen back.
I am trying to think, and the way my brain works, I totally could have, and just it was involuntary. I don't know.
It's fine. Okay, so
This is all on the cutting room floor anyway.
that's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.